Welcome back, everyone, to Pine Hollow Quilts. We're a little jumbled this month because we had a family tragedy happen, so May is a little late, and it's not our guest speaker. Our guest speaker will be in June, and again, she will be a little bit late. But for this month, I have come up with it's called the Garden Square. And yes, I'm going to be referring to my notes. I'm still trying to get everything situated here. But Garden Square is a very easy square. You're going to be learning a couple of new techniques this time. We're going to be learning square and a square, and we're going to be doing no waste flying geese, which is a new one we haven't done yet. And we'll be doing four at a time half square triangles. So we do have a couple of new techniques for you. Hang in there. We've got this. You can do it. I'll show you the preview of the block. This is just my sample block. Now, granted, we're not going to be doing one in oranges and greens, but it's just scrap fabric that I pulled in. And we're going to go through this a little bit more closely. This is my line drawing, so you can see what it looks like. And I'm going to readjust the camera for you and bring you down in so you can see exactly what we need to cut and what my fabrics are. So hang with me tight here till I get the camera readjusted, and we'll be right back. All right, here we have the block, the one drawn out on paper, and you can see we've got A, which is going to be a center of a square and a square block, which is right here. And then we have the B's that are going to coordinate with that. We're also going to use A's out here in each of the corners. And we're going to use the A right here in the flying geese. We've got three different other fabrics here. I picked greens because this is called Garden Square, but you're welcome to use whatever fabrics that you want in range of colors. You can also use scrap fabrics. This works really well with scraps, and I just pulled stuff out of my stash. So you'll see that these rectangles here are all the same. The half square triangles are the second green, and then the third green, or the B squares, are the third green. So I'm going to bring in my colors so you can see what we're working with today. My A is going to be this very pretty spring print floral to go with my garden square theme. My B fabric is this viney fabric. Let me hold it up to see if you can see it a little better. See the vines on it? It's very pretty. Well, my C just fell off, but this is my C fabric right here. And it looks like it's got little roses or something in it, so that attracted me to that. And then my D fabric is this one. And it is just a green that I pulled out of my stash. So those are the colors that we're going to be working with today. All right, so let's start off by having you, first of all, pull your colors. Your A fabric, whatever you're going to choose, mine's the floral, and then your three greens. 1, 2, 3. Now I went with, what is this? This is kind of a medium, and then this one is a darker, and then this one's kind of a medium dark, but mine are all different enough in print that I think it's still going to look good. So go pull your fabrics, come back, and we're going to start cutting them. Okay, so here we are. I tried to decide whether it would be easier to work with cutting all of our fabrics at once, or if it would be easier to work one section at a time. And what I determined to be what I thought would best is to do it one section at a time. For our first step that we're going to do that center square and a square. Now, there are plenty of methods out there, and there are plenty of websites out there to show you how to make these bigger. I got some information from Quiltville from Bonnie Hunter for the center square size. And then I also have some information and tools from, what's her name? Jody Barrows from Square and a Square. She actually has a ruler that will help you do this. We're going to do it with a combination of both of those today. Since I don't have permission to give that information to you, to show it to you because it's copyrighted, I will go ahead and write out what I can, and I will try and put links in the comments below. But for now, what you need is fabric A, and I'll show this to you as I write it. Fabric A, we need 3 3/8 inch square. Okay, so fabric A, we need a 3 3/8 inch square. Mine got a little wrinkled there. And then we also need a fabric B, we need 2-inch strips. Now the length of these doesn't have to be specific. You can use scrap fabric for these. I've got 2 here. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew these on the opposite sides of this square so that we can make this square in a square, because we're going to cut these down. So let's get started on that, and I'll show you how it works. Okay, first we're going to take one strip and our square, and we are going to sew them right sides together. And we're just sewing long enough to have that that square on there. So let's move it to this end, because I want to put my square up so that I can see what I'm doing and know when to stop. So line the edges up, again, right sides together, and sew your normal 1/4 inch. Keeping it all nice and lined up. Okay, and then we're going to sew your other 2-inch strip, still right sides together. Don't worry about pressing this open, we just leave it the way it is. Sew it on the other side of that square. See, you can see the 2 fabrics here. They're both facing the same way. And over here you can see them again. And it doesn't matter how they line up. All you're trying to do is line up the edge, the raw edge of the strip with the raw edge of your square. You'll have both of these tails laying here, and we're going to use those in a second. But go ahead and sew your second strip on. Again, 1/4 inch. Okay, now you're going to want to take these to your iron or your pressing station, and you're going to press these open this way and this way. When you press them open, make sure that your seams in the back are going out. Put your strip on top, just fold it over and press it. Same here. When you get them pressed, you can go ahead and cut them. You don't have to cut them here. Give yourself a little bit of space, maybe 1/2 inch. Cut them off, and then come back, and we're going to sew the strips on the opposite sides. I'll show you that. Go get your strips cut, and we'll be right back. Okay, here we are with everything pressed. I pressed it towards my strips. All right, and it's cut. You see it's still uneven. That's perfectly fine. Doesn't have to be even. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to lay the remainder of the strips that we cut off. We're just going to lay it across, kind of center it, but again, kind of, it's not anything crucial. We'll sew one side, and then we'll use the other strip and sew it on the other side. Using your 1/4 inch seam allowance, and lining it up with your center square. Don't worry about the green strips. Those are going to be trimmed off. All right, let's sew this strip on. And I know you can't see what I'm sewing very well, but I will show you as soon as I'm done. There's only so much one little camera can do and one little person. Okay, so there's that one sewn on. And it is lined up with my center square. Now we're going to do the same thing with the other side. We're going to take the strip, we're going to line it up with the center square and sew the other strip on also. I am working to try and get some updates to my website that will have these handouts on. I'm trying to get pages on there that you can print out in colors, so it'll be easier for you to pick out your fabrics, because I always enjoy doing that. I enjoy coloring to see what my fabrics may look like if I didn't want to use green, and maybe I wanted to do a different color variation. Okay, so we have these on here, and we're going to go do the exact same thing. We're going to press them out, and then we're going to come back and cut. Okay, so here we are back with our neatly pressed square, our sides going out, and now it's time to trim it. There are 3 different ways to trim this square. The first way, and the way I'm going to use to show you so you don't have to buy a new ruler, is I have my 6-inch, let me get this out of the way, my 6-inch OmniGrid ruler, and that's what I'm going to be using. Another way to do it is going to be something called an Easy Square Junior. Let me pull this up here. Easy Square Junior. And this is, you can find this at easyquilt.com. You don't necessarily need it, but it does have this 1/4 inch dotted line the whole way around it. And what you will do with that is you will line that 1/4 inch up on that line, and then you're going to make sure that that stays on the 1/4 inch while you're lining up marks down here so you can see it, so you can keep it square. And you'll just do that on all 4 sides, and you will cut across there. Another way to do this is with something called a square and a square ruler. This is the ruler right here, or template, whichever you want to call it. This is by Jody Barrows, and she has the website called squareandasquare.com. She's got some awesome books. She's got awesome tutorials and plenty of quilts to use. With this ruler, you can make diamonds and squares, and it's one of my favorite ways to cut it. And to show you how to do that, we're going to use the 90-degree end right here, and she makes it so easy. You'll line up your inside square, if I can get it turned here, your inside square on the 2 lines with the 90-degree in the corner, and then you cut across the end, and you do that on all 4 sides. So this is the really easy way to do it, and if you want to get into other types of quilts, I recommend checking her out. This is a really good tool to have and a really good resource. For now, I'm going to use the OmniGrid. So we have to take the white paper out. I am going to line up my 1/4 inch so that it's right there on the point. And then I'm going to pick, and I will get you a picture, a closer shot as soon as I can. Let's see. All right, the camera's going to move a little bit. Be forewarned. And I've got a light that's going to glare. Okay. I have a spot right here. Let me see if I can get it closer to you. I have my 1/4 inch right there on that 90-degree point, and I have those dots lined up the whole way across, and this dot over here is on that point. And I'm currently using the 3.5 inch line, but that's irrelevant. The point is I've got the same line lined up on both corners so that I know I'm going to keep it square, so I can go ahead and cut this piece right here to take those scraps off, and then I will turn it and do the other 3. So let me put the camera back and I will show you how to do that. Okay. All right, so nothing has moved. I'm still lined up with my 2 dots straight across corner to corner, and I'm going to cut on my edge, just like we always do. All right, so those are the scraps that came off. I'm going to turn my ruler. I'm going to turn my fabric, not my ruler. And I'm going to use that same little spot, making sure that I'm on the 1/4 inch one, putting that right in the corner, and that my other one down here is on the same diagonal, and it wasn't, I had to move it. So I'm on the 3.5 inch, 3.5 inch dot here and the 3.5 inch dot here. They're both exactly in the corner. And I'm going to cut. Turn it. And I'm going to do the same thing on this one. I like that 3.5 inch dot. It's easy to find. Put the 1/4 inch dot up in that point. 3.5 inch one down here. Dot right in that point. And as you're cutting, you should be able to see you've got the 1/4 inch down at this line, and you're going to have the 1/4 inch up here when you cut. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and show you how to use the square in a square template from Jody, just to show you how much easier it is. This is my 90 degrees. I'm going to put my 90 degrees right in that corner, and I'm going to line up the lines right on my square. And she's got it already there. And when I cut along the edge, it's going to give me my 1/4 inch. All done. I lined it up with a regular ruler, and I lined it up with Jody's ruler. Jody's ruler was easier, but not impossible. Okay, so there is our square in a square, and that is our first part of the block. Now the next section we're going to do is we're going to cut 4 half square triangles from 2 squares. So what we need, I'm going to move this out of the way and turn this over so you can all get this point. Let's see. So this was for the square in a square. Okay, so for our half square triangles, it is going to be fabric A, and let me grab my pieces here. And let me turn this so you can see that. Okay, so we're going to need our fabric A. And our fabric, which one is this? This is D. So fabric A and fabric D. These are 7-inch squares. So let me write that down for you. So fabric A, and then fabric D. And these are going to make the big half square triangles that were out on the 4 corners. And you need 7-inch square from both. Okay, so here's my fabric A square, and this is my fabric D square. And this is going to yield 4 half square triangles, like what I did there. It's usually abbreviated HST. Okay, so that's what that's going to do. So in order to do this, again, you're going to put right sides together, and you're going to sew a scant 1/4 inch if you can. Let me turn it this way so you can see a little bit better. You're going to sew it the whole way around the square. Nothing inside this time, just the whole way around. So that's what we're going to do right now. Okay, so cut your 7-inch squares of fabric A and fabric D, line them up exactly, and do a 1/4 inch seam the whole way around. So you get started on that, and I will do mine, and I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so here we are sewing the 4 edges. I've got 2 sewn, this one and this one, and I thought I'd just bring you back in to do the last 2, just to have a little bit of continuity here. And there's no right or wrong way to do this, just as long as your seams are, your sides are made, your raw edges are lined up. My goodness, I'm having a hard time talking today. And you can sew right off the edge, it doesn't matter. And you can leave your strings, your threads attached if that works for you. I found out on my sample block that it doesn't work for me. My machine didn't like it, even though it should. So to make things less complicated, I just clip them on each one. But I'm sewing right off the edge. No need to worry about stopping a 1/4 inch in or anything like that. Just sew straight off the edge. All right, and here we have, and hopefully I'll be able to show this to you so you can see it. I used a lighter thread, but I just went the whole way around it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take a ruler and we're going to lay it corner to corner. Let me find my rulers here. We're going to take the ruler, lay it corner to corner, and you're going to go right through the intersections of where you stitched, and you're going to make the cut diagonal. You're going to do that on both diagonals. All right, so let me move you over. I had to hook up my power cord, so let's see if it's going to work. Let me move you over to the cutting table, or my cutting space, I guess I should say. Shoop. With any luck, I just turned you and you can still see. Oh, I did good. All right, so we're going to line it up corner to corner on one diagonal, going right through the X's we made with our seams. That was my cutting table that moved. It's on wheels. That was not my block. Make sure it stays together. And then we're going to turn our ruler, or if you have a rotating cutting mat, you can rotate your cutting mat. And then we're going to do corner to corner on the other side. So you're making a big X. And then you have 4 half square triangles. Now comes the time to go press them. Very gently press them, because these inside edges of your half square triangle, which are going to, once you open it, turn out to be your outside edges, they're on the bias. So be careful not to stretch them. Press as opposed to iron. You can very gently finger press it over and then go with your iron and set them. And it's going to be best probably to go towards, in this case it's my green, but your fabric D. So when you press them open, go towards your fabric D. All right, so I'm going to go press mine, and we'll be right back here to do the next section. Okay, so here we have our 4 half square triangles from our squares. Go ahead and trim off your dog ears so that they are nice. Check your measurements. Make sure that they measure 4.5 square inches. That way they will fit into the block that we're going to do. The next thing we are going to do, we need fabric A, and we're going to need, again, fabric B, and we're going to start making the 4 flying geese. So fabric A, and I will turn this so that you can see it. Fabric A, we need, have to look at my notes here. We need a 5.5 inch square. So there's my 5.5 inch square. Like I said, I'll turn this so that you can see it. So fabric A, 5.5 inch square, and this is the same one that we used for the half square triangles and the square and a square, are basically my floral. And then we need 4, and this is going to be fabric B. And again, this is the same one that we used to go around our square and a square, same fabric. So it's fabric B, and we need quantity 4, 2 7/8 inches square. Our 8s are getting a real workout today. If you remember right, the initial square was 3 3/8. These are 2 7/8. And we have 4 of them. And this is to make the 4 flying geese, also called the no waste flying geese. Okay, I'll give you a second to get some of that copied down. So fabric A and fabric B again. So that's what we need. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take the 4 small squares, and I'm going to move this. I will continue to use the white paper though because it's easier to see. And you're going to need a pencil, and you're going to need a ruler. And I just grabbed the ruler that I have here. And you're going to draw one line, corner to corner, on the back side of each of your squares. Okay, so here we go. We're going to draw one line across the corners on all 4 of your fabric B 2 7/8 inch squares. Mine's a little light to see on the camera, but I don't want it seen on the finished project, so I have to do it this way. I am just using a regular pencil. All right, there's 3, and there's 4. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull in our big square, and we are going to line up the small squares. The first one's going to go in one corner. Your diagonal line's going this way, up and down towards you. And we're going to put the second one on the exact same way in the other corner, opposite. Your diagonal line will continue straight down through. You can pin this if you want, or you can sew one and then sew part of one to get it stabilized, and then add on the second one and finish sewing it. What you're going to do is you're going to sew 1/4 inch on each side of the line. Do not sew the line. That's going to be your cut line. Line this up with the line on your foot, and your needle should be on either side depending on where you're starting. But sew one line, one stitch line down each side of your drawn line. And I'm going to turn the camera so that hopefully you will be able to see me do that. Get some stuff out of the way here. All right, let me turn you around. Let's see, are we good? Back it up just a little bit. All right, I usually do that off camera, but I want to keep it all situated. Okay, so here is my square all ready to go. My drawn line goes this way. And in fact, I'm actually going to take this one off just so I can see it. I'm lining up my line on my 1/4 inch mark on my foot. And I'm going to start stitching that 1/4 inch. I'm going to stitch about halfway. And I'm going to stop. Stop with needle down. I'm going to bring in the other one, remembering to line it up in the corner exactly, raw edge to raw edge on both sides. And my diagonal should meet the diagonal right here. All right, and then I'm going to keep stitching, holding both of these down slightly. Okay, it's starting to bunch up there a little bit. That's fine. Hold it down, lift the foot, and everything is still lined up, and we keep right on going. Okay, one side down. See if you can see it in the camera. I have this side stitched down. There's my drawn line. And I'm going to stitch on this side now. So I'll flip it around. Actually, it was flipped around. Again, line the drawn line up with my 1/4 inch mark. And I'm going to start stitching. All the way across both of them. Okay. All right. Now, as you can see, hopefully, I've got the 2 stitched lines on either side. So the next step is going to be cut your drawn line straight through both blocks. And I'm going to do this just to the side of the camera. I know you can't see anything, but that's what I'm doing. I'm cutting my drawn line through all those fabrics, the 2 little ones and the big one. Cutting it just as I did the sewn line. I'm cutting it straight through. All right, so what you have are these 2 pieces. All I did was I took the straight line and I cut it. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go press these open, just like such, and then come back and we're going to put the other 2 squares on. So go press these open, get them sewn and get them pressed open, and meet me right back here. Okay, here we are. They're pressed open. Kind of look like hearts, kind of. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the other 2 squares onto these 2 pieces, one on each one. So we're going to take the one that has the line drawn. It's going to go this way, and we're going to line it up with this other point down here, and it's going to go vertical, or at least vertical. There we go. Line it up with the point the last point of the big square that was here, your line goes this way. And again, you're going to sew on either side of the line, not on the line. So you've got that one there. Do the same with this one. My line goes this way. Line it up in the point. And it comes straight up again. Sew your 1/4 of an inch on either side of the line. And we're going to cut those lines too when we get them done. Okay, so you can take that next step. So do your 2 stitchings on either side of both lines. And then you can go ahead and cut on your pencil line, your drawn line, just like you did before. All right, so let's get that started here. I will leave you on camera for a few minutes so we can see what we're doing. So I'm lining up my drawn line with my 1/4 inch mark on my foot. Have to do a little adjustment here. Okay, 1/4 inch is lined up. And you should be in like a little valley at the top up there to know that you're right where your 1/4 inch is if everything's being sewn straight. Start stitching, come down. Okay, and this one I will actually do a little bit of chain stitching on just because they're here and I can. So leaving my needle down, I'm just going to slide this one in so that my 1/4 inch line is on the mark on my foot where I know my 1/4 inch spacing is. And I'm going to just start stitching the second one down too. All right, needle up. We're going to switch it out here. Just because this is so little, I'll go ahead and leave the camera running. Come back, excuse me, come back out. Again, line up that 1/4 inch drawn line on the other side, just like we do for half square triangles, and stitch it down. Can still do my chain stitching here. We can just slide this one in. Pencil line with my 1/4 inch line on my foot. Go straight down. And we're all done on that. Now I'll try and show you what I was talking about the little valleys in your stitching. All right, hopefully I can show you this. See, there's a little valley between the point of your square and the side of this. Your stitching, if your 1/4 inch is right on, should be right in that point. Even on this one, I think I did pretty good. Except for this one. I don't know. That square might have been a little small. Or I trimmed it a little bit too close. I don't know. We'll figure that one out in a minute. But, okay, now go ahead and cut your drawn line on both of them. I may have to redo one. Not that that'll be a first. But that just goes to show you we're not perfect, and yep, but sometimes my seams aren't quite right either. Okay, there's one. They look like that. That's what I cut right there. I'm doing the other one. And yours should look very similar to mine. Okay. There's the other one. So now I have 4 flying geese. And what I need to do now, and what you need to do now, is open your flying geese and press them. And then trim off all of your dog ears after you get them pressed. So go ahead, go press them, trim them, and meet me back here. We've got one, you know what? We've got one more piece to cut. Let's cut that before we do those. And the last piece to cut are going to be rectangles. And they're going to be made with fabric D. And they're just going around the churn dash block. They're going to go opposite these flying geese. And they are 2.5 by 4.5. So let me just write this down here so that you can see it. Let me put a line under here. So then fabric D, we need 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles. Okay, so that's what these are. This is fabric D. Let me try and get you one that's not folded. I should press them a little better. But that's what we need for that. We need the 4.5 by 2.5 inch rectangles, and you need a quantity of 4 of them because you need the same amount as you do the flying geese. So quantity 4 of fabric D rectangles. Okay, now that you can get those cut at the same time, go ahead, press your flying geese, cut your rectangles, and then we'll be all ready to start assembling this. So I'll meet you right back here as soon as my flying geese are all pressed and ready to go. All right, so here we are. 4 flying geese are pressed. 1, 2, 3, 4. I did end up with a slightly wonky one. I'm going to use it anyway. I'm just going to lose the point on it. I'm okay with that. Here are the 4 rectangles. Here are the 4 half square triangles for our corners. And here is our center for our square and a square. So now we are going to start laying them out. All right, let me see if I can back you up a little bit here to get some more room so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so first of all, we know the square and a square goes in the center. And we know the flying geese, I got to get my notes here. You can always go back to the beginning. And like I said, I hope to have a tutorial and a video up on the website very soon. I've got to find somebody with more capabilities than me. Okay, so here we go, square and a square. Let's see, and then we're going to do the half square triangles, and fabric A is going to go out. Okay, so I'm lining this up so that you all can see it. So the greens are going to meet in there. Your fabric A's are all going to come out to the corners. Hopefully you can still see this. If not, I'll adjust it. And then this one over here. Let's move it this way just a smidge. Okay, so far so good. Yep, you can see those. Okay, then our flying geese. Now we're going to have to sew these together to begin with, but your rectangle is going to go next there, and then your geese are going to point inwards. Okay, so we can line all those up. You've got all 4 of those. Your geese point inwards. And I know it looks a little off right now because nothing's sewn together yet, and that's fine. I'll put the last one right here. Geese point inwards. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is stitch your rectangles to your flying geese right sides together. So go ahead and do that. I've got to move everything just a smidge out from under my sewing machine. I'm going to keep you all on camera so you can hear and watch what I'm doing as we do this final step. Guess my flying geese are a little smidgen long. Let me see, I may have to trim this one. Your flying geese should end up 2.5 by 4.5, the same as your rectangles. Mine are a little wonky for some reason. Probably because, yeah, I didn't measure very well or something. But we'll see. 4.5. Yeah, I got to trim a smidge off. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Didn't quite happen the way I had hoped. But then again, this is live camera, and this is fabric, and fabric moves, and it is what it is. So, you know, we're not perfect. I don't even try to think that I'm perfect, because that will lead me into all kinds of problems. And I think this was my wonky one anyway. Okay. So again, I'm going to stitch down. Yeah, this was my wonky one anyway. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to stitch down the side. Now, the easiest way to do this is to make sure that your flying geese is on top, because when you stitch, you want to make sure that you're hitting right on your two seam lines where you came together there, and that will assure you that you don't lose your points. And like I said, this is my wonky one, so I am probably going to lose my point. But stitch it with your 1/4 of an inch and wiggle it where you may need to, so when you open it back up, you're going to have that sewn line on there, and you're going to be able to open it. And like I said, this is my wonky one. I lost my point, but I'm okay with that. Okay, so I'm going to put that one down, and then I'm going to go ahead and do my next one. Again, I'm going to line them up, sew on the side, so my flying geese is up so I can find my point. And if yours seem to be a little wonky, go ahead and check them. Make sure they are 2.5 by 4.5. If you have to trim them up a tad, then trim them up a tad. If you're a perfectionist and want to go back and make sure that something, maybe a scant seam allowance is what you need, or your 1/4 inch wasn't quite right. Yeah, because I lost a point on that one too, just kind of. But like I said, I'm okay with that. I'm here to have fun and enjoy my quilting. I'm not here necessarily to worry about perfection. And this one's really off. I should have trimmed these. Okay, so here you see the teacher not doing what she told you to do, was to make sure that they were trimmed. Again, I'm okay with that. But when you get your flying geese pressed, make sure they're trimmed 2.5 to 4.5 by 4.5, just like your rectangles are. If they're not right, you may want to go back and change them, because none of mine are coming out right. But it's because I got lazy. I didn't check my 1/4 inch seam. It's not because we did anything wrong. Your instructions are correct. It's just that my sewing was not as accurate as it probably should be. And I will show you a block that I've already previously made as my sample block to make sure I had all my measurements correctly. And it was done correct. And here I'm not going to be able to see my seam because I didn't turn it the right way. So this is what happens. And you kind of just have to guess where it is and feel where it is. And this one may actually turn out better. So we'll see how that one goes. No, just as bad as the other ones, but that's okay. I lost my points. I'm not worried about it. But see, I'm off slightly because I couldn't see, because I didn't have my flying goose on top. It should have been right there at the intersection, and I'm just in a little bit. Again, I'm okay with this. Okay, and the next part now is we're going to start doing this in rows. So this row together, sew this row together, sew this row together, and then stitch your rows, stitch your columns, whichever direction they are. I'm sideways, so yeah, I'm a little confused which direction I'm going right now. But anyway, you're going to sew your 3 sections together, your 3 blocks together, and then you're going to sew your 3 rows together, and then you'll have your block. Your block should measure 12.5 inches square when finished. So go ahead, stitch those together. I'm going to stitch mine together. I'll come back and show you what it looks like completed, and then I'll show you my sample block that's done in a different colorway. So you have a choice. You know, it doesn't have to be flowers and green just because that's what I did and because the name of it's garden block. Who cares? Maybe you want your garden a different color. I'm okay with that. So get those stitched together and we'll be right back. Okay, so here we go. This is the finished block. Fabric A, fabric B, fabric C, fabric D. This is basically just a churn dash block with a square and a square in the center and the flying geese out on the outsides. But this is my finished block. If something's not feeling right or feeling a little off when you go to put this together, like something's too big, this is basically just a 9 patch that we put together. So go back and measure. Each little section of the 9 patch should measure 4.5 inches before you put it into this. Your block, once finished, again, will finish at 12.5 inches right here. When we sew it into the sampler quilt, it will finish at 12 inches, but this should be 12.5 inches. My other little block, where did it go? Oh, here it is. I'm losing things. Okay, this was my sampler block. See, and this one is done completely different than the other one. My center is not the same as my outside pieces, and that's okay. That's how I made it. But this and this would be my fabric A. This was my fabric B, which is even, oh, I didn't even make that the same in this one because I made these two fabric C and this fabric D. So I even changed this one up a little bit, but here they are side by side, as much as I can get them side by side for you. Let me see if I can, no, I can't. But here they are. This is the garden block in oranges and blues, in greens and florals. And this is your May block. I will put, here, let me write it down for you. Let's see, where's the rest of my paper? Where'd my paper go? Here it is. Too many things. I want to write down the name of the square and a square ruler for you so you can find it. And it's Jody Barrows. Square in a, and unfortunately it won't all fit, square.com. So there's that. And this is who I referenced with the special tool to cut your square in a square. She also has some reference books and some really great tools. And, you know, if this is something that you really like, then she would be a good one to check out. And then the other ruler that can be used for this, that's an I. And it's called the Easy Square Junior. And this is from easyquilt.com. And that's this ruler right here. If you wanted to check that out, just in case you wanted to possibly check out a new ruler or a new template or even a couple new techniques, I wanted to provide those for you. This has been our May sampler sew along with the garden block. Next month for June, we definitely will be having our first guest. The second guest I'm actually starting to line up with a brand new technique, and we'll get those going. But we look forward to having you back with Pine Hollow Quilts again. Please sign up below to get our newsletter, like the video, send all kinds of comments and feedback. I love to hear from you. And like I said, if these aren't lining up like you think they should, 4.5 inches is your size before you sew them in. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.